the gold and silver markets and the share markets, tiny compared to all the other markets in the mainstream world, financial world. And when those people, those investors come our way, you will see moves up in the juniors and exploration stocks, even from here, 10 to 20 times higher.
Eric Sprott, Rick Rule, Doug Casey, Maren Katusa, and Keith Neumeyer, all shareholders of one new gold stock, making big headlines since its start last April, acquiring gold for $5 to $10 per ounce in the ground, which is dramatically lower than the $50 to $100 per ounce in the ground other companies have been paying. To learn more about what hard asset investors are calling a mineral bank, visit crushthestreet.com/investright.
Hello, everyone, and welcome into CrushTheStreet.com. I got a returning guest today, a truth teller, Bill Murphy of GATA, and LaMetropolCafe.com. He has led the fight against precious metals market manipulation since 1999. He's been on this show before. Bill Murphy, thank you for taking the time to come on and chat with me today.
Great to be here, Ken. Thanks.
Bill, I want to get your thoughts on the Shanghai Gold Exchange. We're seeing some changes here. They're changing some of the rules. The yuan is going to be used to as a price discovery mechanism for gold. And I just want to get your thought on the significance of this in the 2016 year here.
Well, Ken, it's a really good question, and the interesting part is that nobody really knows yet, in the sense that what it's really going to mean. We know that physical gold has been flowing, from the west to the east. The Chinese demand numbers over the past many years have been staggering, and it's very likely to take away from the influence that the corruption in the West has had and all the manipulation because of their coming influence on the market. Now, no one knows how big this is going to be and so on, but the odds are that we're in the process of a major league change in terms of how gold is priced and what the bad guys, as I would call them, the gold cartel, is able to get away with. And it's a potentially exciting, the proof will be in the pudding, and we'll just have to see. I've been hearing for years about different arbitrage opportunities, how the Chinese, what price is higher, what they're willing to pay, but that hasn't been shown at all. And arbitrages can last for a period of time, but they're ultimately closed if they're of real importance. So if the demand over there continues as good as we think, and if it sets a true price in the physical market and negates a lot of this derivative selling that we have on the COMEX and around that, it will be fantastic.
So, a guy like Bill Holter believes China owns as much as 20,000 tons of gold. The one who owns the gold makes the rules. So I want to ask you here, and I know you alluded to it in your answer, is the paper price manipulation game changing hands here?
Well, I've been discussing in my commentary for a while. It's a process that's changing. And yes, this gold cartel, which consists of the bullion banks and the U.S. government, the BIS, and other central banks, are in the process of losing control of what they've been doing. Gold is traded differently for all year. It was set up by what happened at the end of last year in the last couple of months. You've had a respite now, and now it seems to be going back to the pattern of trading differently, the way it comes back after the gold cartel attacks. And it's eventually going to be a big, big deal. And I think the real key to know that they're in bad trouble will be when the price of silver takes off, which there's been absolutely no change in the way silver is traded in 5 years. None. It's the worst trading market I've ever seen in my life, and it doesn't appear to be getting any better.
So what's the significance of silver moving first? Can you explain that a little further, Bill?
Absolutely. Well, it's a question because silver is their Achilles heel. Once they lose control of silver, say it takes out 1850, it's going to go nuts to the upside. I don't know where they're getting this physical supply, but they're scared to death of losing control of it. And you can tell by the way silver has traded vis-a-vis gold, and that's why the ratio is still out at 81-1. Don't get me wrong, I'm as bullish as can be, and I think it's going to explode over 100. But we want to see a change in the way it trades. Mm-hmm. interest is way up there, which means they're controlling the physical price through the paper market. Now, the physical market isn't responding, or that they couldn't keep it down here, but they've been able to influence it. So when that changes, then we'll know this process that I'm talking about, the tipping point has gone to the really exciting level, and the prices of gold and silver can just explode out of nowhere.
Yeah, it does seem like gold is having issues going past 1280, 1285. It hit that ceiling and has just been down since then. And then silver, same story, about 1580 or so, 1590. And so, I mean, what have you been seeing over the last month? I mean, we've seen silver and gold kind of be in this trading range as opposed to the beginning of the year where they were just really ramping up. February was a huge month for gold. What are the specifics as to what the cartel has been doing here over the last few weeks, Bill?
Well, as I mentioned, it gets silver in lockdown. I call it, there's like an anchor on it. It's a magnet at 15, and every rally is sold. And gold is starting to, it looks like it's beginning to act out again, and it could be spectacular. And in this regard, what has changed, while silver is trading just as it has for 5 crummy years, what is totally different is the way the silver shares are trading. The HUI today, which is, it's a lot of it's gold, but made a new high for the year and high for the move, close to 187. That's off like a 9,900 low. I mean, it's an incredible move this year. And the silver shares have been the best of all, and yet the silver price has done nothing. Now, that didn't happen for 5 years, and it's a complete change from what we've seen in the past year. So this strongly suggests it's a big, big money, knows what's coming in silver, and knows the bad guys, as I call them, are going to lose control.
Right.
So that's a very exciting development, and it's not a hope trade anymore when we talk about silver all of a sudden exploding.
So really the big money is acting like the future is going to be better than the past based on the way the mining shares are trading, as opposed to maybe a couple years ago when this wasn't being seen. Would you agree?
Oh, exactly right. In every single case, the mining shares went right back down to the bottom, and we're making the silver shares were making a bottom at the beginning of the year. Mm-hmm. Take First Majestic, for example, one of the better silver companies, and great management. That the share price went from 250 to 240 to 7. Mm-hmm. That's a big, big deal. In the years past, it would have gone right back down to 240, and I'm talking about 5 or 10 times. So this is a big change, and one worth commenting on and putting an asterisk along with it.
Bill, what does a bull market look like? And I've been asking some of my latest guests on this, but a bull market in the junior mining sector, how long does it normally last? And, just to give people an idea of what to expect when they start seeing their portfolios go up, just like they have been, and not to jump the gun too early on selling.
Well, it can be extraordinary, and of course the last 5 years, and maybe in many cases in the junior sector as long as 8 or 9, it's been a horror show. And all I can say is Newton's law is going to come into effect again with about equal and opposite reactions. That the gold and silver markets and the share markets tiny compared to all the other markets in the mainstream world, financial world. And when those investors come our way, you will see moves up in the juniors and exploration stocks, even from here, 10 to 20 times higher.
Wow.
And it's like the Wild West when it goes, because all this money goes in these tiny little market caps, and it can't handle it. And we've had the reverse for the past many years, and in going back to the bigger shares, I think one of the reasons they're acting so well is they got so underpriced and they were so bad for so long that things are changing. And that's a process too, but when the investment sector comes our way, and it's going to happen, it's going to be historic moves to the upside, and fortunes are going to be made, and all the angst and really rough times we've had over these past years will be a distant memory in the years ahead.
Bill, is it going to be a direct result of the financial markets melting down and the transfer of wealth going from precious metals into or from the financialized assets, such as just the overall stock market, into precious metals? Is this what's going to do it?
Well, it doesn't have to. I mean, that can be a big impetus. You can get safe haven buying, and we had a lot of that in January. It disappeared to some degree, and now it could be just very beginning to surface again. But the real key will be when the gold cartel runs out of enough physical supply to suppress the price. That is by far a bigger factor. They want to keep gold and silver suppressed at all costs, but they're in a process of losing that ability to control the gold price, and then when it happens in silver, that's why it will go nuts, and that's the real key. Now, that said, demand coming from the big investment world that sees trouble coming in general markets, and which certainly is on the horizon, that can only be a huge plus for the gold and silver prices and for the share prices.
And it could be the nail in the coffin that actually exposes the manipulation that allows these metals to rise like a beach ball pressed underwater. I think you were the one that coined that phrase. Bill.
I did. I'll take credit for it. Thank you.
Okay. Bill, I wanted to ask you, any new developments going on with GATA or Le Metropole Cafe?
Well, it's been a rough few years. It's picking up, but my colleague at GATA is Chris Powell's in Asia right now at a conference and doing a great job at exposing them gold, silver price suppression schemes. And one thing that is of interest is that a longtime friend of mine went to VMI and listened to Bill Dudley, head of the New York Fed, and asked him, about whether the Fed, United States government, has swapped gold with other central banks or countries over the years. And he would not answer the question. But he answered the question. All they had to do was say no. So we're trying to follow up on it because it's a big deal, because that is a key thesis to what GATA said the United States has done, because you cannot sell gold legally in the United States without an act of Congress, our gold. However, you can swap gold with a different country and sell their gold. So that's what we're trying to get the press and other people to discuss, because we think because of that, a lot of the U.S. gold is encumbered. It's not there anymore. Mm-hmm. So will it become a big deal knowing the financial market press asking serious questions? The odds are against it, but you never know. It only takes, one question like my friend Ware Smith did to Bill Dudley at the Fed to catch hold, and all of a sudden they got a problem.
Wow. Wow, Bill. Well, hey, that sounds like you guys are really onto something, and you've been onto something. You've been the leader of exposing the manipulation now for years. So, any closing thoughts before we say goodbye here?
Well, just that, as I mentioned, the last number of years have been really rough for everybody in the industry, whether you're selling, gold coins, or, running a small gold company, or running a convention, newsletter writers like myself. I mean, it was just got tired of hearing about it, and that's all going to change. And we have a boom time ahead like we have never seen. And again, as I mentioned earlier, it's a process, and that process is underway, and it's going to continue. So it's really time for people to listen to people like yourself that are, getting this kind of talk out there and understanding of what's going to happen and why, and what they should be aware of, because it's liable to be quite chaotic in the next year or two.
You're right, and you know what? We're seeing the optimism really come into play here in 2016, and you alluded to it. We're seeing it in the mining shares. We're seeing it in the conferences. We're seeing it just in just the HUI. I mean, that's something that people should definitely be taking a look at. So, with that, Bill, is there anything that you wanted to let people know about regarding either GATA or Le Metropole Cafe?
Sure, they can come to my website. It's Le Metropole Cafe, LeMetropoleCafe.com, and sign up for a 2-week free trial if they care to see what I have to offer. And Chris Powell, my colleague, does a great job, and they can go to www.gata.org. It's a heck of a lot easier to say, and get on his list for free. And he does a great job. And together we've been a tag team for 17 years now, fighting the bad guys, and we're not going to stop till we win.
Well, you're an inspiration and you're a leader in our world, Bill. So, Bill Murphy, thank you so much for taking the time to join me today.
Anytime, Ken. My pleasure.